What a beautiful day here at Pork Congress 2017. By the way, today's AM Minnesota is being sponsored by the Rice County Pork Producers, the Goodhue County Pork Producers, the Minnesota Pork Board, Express Pressure Washers, and the Manitoba Pork Council. Have a number of guests lined up here for today's AM Minnesota program, and we're going to start with a little bit of education. One of the things I like to get out at shows like this is all the technology and the lengths that livestock producers go through to try and keep their, in this case, pigs healthy. With me is Abby Noy, who's with the University of Minnesota, and also Sarah Sheik, who's a swine specialist with the University of Minnesota. Let's start with you, Abby. I saw that big trailer that you had pulled in here, and I thought, boy, this is what it's all about, keeping animals healthy. You want to explain a little bit about yourself and then what you're showing here to pork producers?
Absolutely. I'm actually a regional extension educator for poultry, but I'm taking...
Poultry? Isn't this a swine... Sarah, isn't this a swine show?
It is, but she really needs to be the one that talks about her biosecurity entry education trailer, because it did start with the poultry faculty as well as the educators, Abby, helping them out with high-path avian influenza.
Well, Abby, we learned a lot about that, and it can apply to other species, right? That's kind of the idea?
Absolutely, and that's why we are so happy to share our newest teaching tool that the university owns. It's the Biosecure Entry Education Trailer, or the BEAT unit is what we call it. And it's an 18-foot enclosed trailer that we can modify and set up for individual farm sites to teach and help implement biosecurity protocols for entering their production areas.
You know, Abby, I was thinking about a lot of discussion here at Pork Congress and, well, since the first of the year on the new law, the Veterinary Feed Directive. And let's face it, if you're raising livestock, you don't want to have to use antibiotics. You want to do everything you can to keep them healthy. And if that means keeping diseases from being transmitted into your barn, that's a big win over having sick animals.
Absolutely. It's a huge win, and it's, 10 minutes of your day that you can increase and really modify and be beneficial to what you're doing and what you're carrying into your production area.
And specifically, Sarah, in your field of swine, we've had some devastating diseases that have been hugely costly to pork producers that we want to keep out. So that's why then the pork producers kind of got involved in let's get this trailer here.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. A few years ago when we had PED running rampant in the industry, and of course PRRS is always a virus that's unfortunately still there in the industry trying to keep out. So yeah, I think that there's lots of applications with the BEAT unit, as Abby said, to help educate producers to make sure that they're keeping up with their biosecurity practices.
You know, Abby, when we were going through that devastating outbreak with a highly pathogenic avian influenza, I said early on, the only good that can come from this is that we can learn to prevent something like this from happening again to our poultry industry, our swine, our cattle industry.
Yep. Exactly, and that's exactly why this trailer exists, so that we can educate the producers, their farm workers, the managers, even the service providers, and it's going to be a great tool to use in the coming years.
Well, Abby, Sarah, we have to take a break for the markets here quickly. After the break, then let's talk a little bit about what's in this trailer and how easily maybe producers can adapt this technology and what's available to prevent diseases from coming in. Hey, thanks again, John, and also thanks to the Manitoba Pork Council, Express Pressure Washers in Blooming Prairie, the Minnesota Pork Producers Association, the Goodhue County Pork Producers, and the Rice County Pork Producers for, once again this year, sponsoring today's AM Minnesota program from Pork Congress 2017. I have two guests with me right now. Sarah Sheik, who's a swine specialist with the University of Minnesota, and also Abby Now, who's a regional extension educator in Willmar, right?
Yep, working with the poultry folks.
Well, when you say Willmar, Abby, I do think of poultry.
I would hope so.
But first, Sarah, why don't you tell the folks a little bit about this Pork Congress? This is a huge show, and it was so encouraging yesterday. Even though the weather was a little less than ideal, we had a big crowd, all these exhibitors here. Wow.
We did. We had a great crowd, especially by our BEAT unit. A lot of the producers were wondering what was this new educational tool that we had, and how could they utilize it.
This is just classic for livestock producers, no matter what species, Abby, that they know that from an animal husbandry point of view, they need to do everything they can to keep their animals healthy. Because what? If they're healthy, that's the right thing, animal welfare, but it's also the right thing profit-wise too, isn't it? They don't go they go hand in hand. They don't go counter to each other.
Exactly, and I think all of our farmers, no matter what species they're raising, they really just care about those animals so much more than their profits.
I used to be a livestock producer at Dairyman, and it was fun. At the end of the day, you're tired, you're just taking a swing through the barns, and to see those heifers laying in a nicely bedded area, they had feed, they had water, they looked comfortable, walked through the freestall barn, and the cows were laying on the mattresses, well bedded, nice and comfy, and there was some satisfaction in that.
Oh, absolutely. It's probably one of the biggest joys for any producer is to see their animals happy every day.
Well, so Sarah, do you want to start, or Abby, tell us about this new educational unit that we have, this big, what was it, 18-foot trailer? Sarah?
Yeah, I can. So producers can use this as an educational tool to help their farm workers, managers, anybody basically that would be entering their animal units on how to enter in a biosecure manner. So we've got it set up with either a 2-step, like Danish entry, or a 3-step. And they can have, through different workshops and stuff, can have their employees go through using their farm-specific biosecurity protocol for entry, and just watching them, making sure that they're doing it correctly, and letting them know if there's something that they could be doing better.
I think that's the key, what they're doing. Is there something we can do that would make it even better, even more biosecure?
Yes, that's correct. And so in there we've got benches, hand washing stations, so set up similar to how they might enter their animal units, and they can move it around so that it's more specific to how they might enter their facilities.
And I know, Abby, that my wife is in the poultry industry. She's an occupational health nurse, and she gets to work with some of the farms and some of the feed mills. I've told this story before, but a lot of people don't realize the steps that they go through in the poultry industry. She has to be away from the plant 48 hours before she can go out to a farm. The car has to be washed, undercarriage too, different clothes, different shoes. I mean, people don't realize the lengths that the producers go through to keep their animals healthy.
Exactly, and it's really a key component of having a biosecure protocol that you and your employees are following that protocol every time you enter and exit that facility. There was actually a study in Canada, and they recorded through video surveillance about 800 entries and exits, and only 2.6% of those entries were done properly according to the protocol set by that production farm.
Ooh, if that was my barn and my animals in there, we would be having a little meeting with employees.
Exactly. So it's really key to have continual education for your employees, making sure you are adhering to your PQA protocols. And in the poultry industry, we're starting to align with some of those types of standards as well. So just making sure that there's continual training. We can help with training as U of M Extension, and we're happy to do so.
And Sarah, from your side and swine industry specifically, it only takes a break in the perfect protocol once by one employee, and we can have pigs sick, pigs dying.
Yes, that's correct, and we definitely were reminded of that through our PED break a few years ago, that yes, for a lot of our disease pathogens, it's just such a very, very small amount that can infect an entire barn. So biosecure entry is very important. And
we're trying to educate with all different types of diseases, whether it be a virus, a bacteria. I mean, I think some probably are more easily transmitted than others.
Of course. I mean, you have the big newsmakers like the PED, the PRRS, the high-path avian influenza, but it's also going to help with any scours or any other, your common breakouts with your young animals, Salmonella or E. coli, say in the poultry. So having a really diligent program will help all of your herd management and health.
I remember after the highly pathogenic avian influenza outbreak was under control. And I was doing an interview with Steve Olson, the executive director of the Minnesota turkey growers, and he said one of the things we learned is that there were some breaks in biosecurity. Some producers thought that they were doing everything absolutely perfectly, and then they found out that there were breaks.
Yeah, that's correct, not only in the poultry industry, but also in the pork industry as well. We see that with PRRS and PD all the time. It's just somebody one day maybe forgets a component of their biosecure entry, and unfortunately that's enough to let that disease pathogen in.
Well, I've talked to some producers who the semis coming onto the farm, maybe hauling feed or coming to get the livestock for harvest at the processing plant, they have to be disinfected and washed, and now we have professional truck wash stations. It's incredible how far we've come and what we've learned.
And it's something you don't really think about until you've experienced it. It goes down to even your service providers, your mail delivery, UPS, FedEx, any of your other service providers like trash removal, your rendering vehicles. All of those really come into play specifically during an outbreak. But it's also something that really keep in mind when you're just working with your biosecure protocol.
A lot of people don't realize, too, before you can get into some of these facilities, you start here and you go through these procedures, and then all your clothes stay in this room, and you shower and disinfect yourself before you go into this barn. Now, last time I checked, I can even go to the doctor's office for a routine visit, and I don't have to shower in, do I?
No.
Maybe the doctor would like it that way. Never mind.
Yes, that is correct. There's a lot of things that we do in the industry to keep our animals, and in this case, the pigs, healthy.
I was talking to a turkey producer that I know quite well, and she had the biosecurity, but found that some of her workers weren't doing it because you had to step in this bar, disinfectant for your shoes and then go to the next one, or you had to change them. But it was hard for them to do it. Here they were standing on one foot, hopping, trying to produce the other. So guess what? A chair showed up. So sometimes it's such simple things.
With the implementation of this new education tool at the Beat trailer, we've been trying to produce some YouTube videos, and we are learning the exact same thing, that everybody's personal technique is going to be different. So you have to be really accommodating to each person's physical abilities. An 18-year-old can probably physically do some things that dad or grandpa might not be able to physically do anymore, like standing on one foot for a while, to be able to put on coveralls without dragging them in the ground. So making sure that you're providing equipment and tools to help everybody implement those practices.
Sarah, you're smirking and shaking your head, so apparently you've noticed that.
Yes, I have. I've done some educational videos myself trying to get coveralls on before I step out of a cab of a truck. And again, I think that goes back to how this Beat unit can be an excellent educational tool where you can practice some of those things knowing that you really don't have the live animals on the other side. So you can kind of work out a little bit of those bugs and know maybe some things that you need to change or could change at the farm to make the process a little bit easier for everybody.
So, Abby, exactly how does it work if there's a livestock producer out there, no matter what species, and they want to utilize this resource? How does it work? Who do they call? How do they get this in the works?
Right now, the easiest way is to contact me or Kevin Yanni, who is an extension engineer. And the easiest way to find our contact information is to visit our website at extension.umn.edu/poultry. And you will find a biosecurity tab, and then you can find all of the information there. And obviously, since we're here at the Pork Congress, we are very willing to share it with the swine industry. And we can certainly figure out, and the trailer's mobile, so we'll bring it to you and have a half-day program and give all sorts of educational resources, as Sarah talked about, practicing. And it'll be a fun day, actually.
And Sarah, obviously this is a beautiful-looking trailer, all sorts of things in it. You mentioned an 18-foot. Last time I checked, somebody had to kind of pay for this. Where did the funds come from? Was it some of the livestock organizations themselves, or where did the funding come from to put this together?
The funding for this trailer actually came from rapid response dollars. during the avian influenza outbreak to help with education to go about with that.
And the Rapid Response Funds, was that part of a state or federal program then?
It's actually a special allotment through the state of Minnesota legislature, and that we get dollars through the Minnesota Ag Experiment Stations through the University of Minnesota, and those rapid response dollars work through there. So it's rapid agricultural response. But again, it was a special allocation because of the high path avian flu.
And so if a producer wants you guys to come out and utilize this trailer, then is there a cost too?
For now, there is not. We still have funding through that rapid agricultural response, but at some point that funding will end, obviously, and then there will be a fee for our time and travel to get the trailer to their location.
But what an investment. As long as it's reasonable, I can't see any livestock producer that would be a stumbling block when you look at the cost of having barns full of sick animals.
Yes, that's correct. And I think we've gotten a positive response, too, from visitors here at Pork Congress when we tell them we've got this educational tool. A lot of them are already in communication with us, making plans of how they could have meetings with their growers or barn managers to remind everybody of biosecure entry.
Because it only takes one little slip up one time.
That's correct.
You mentioned the rapid response, and I know that the pork producers or the pork industry have a rapid response in terms of if there's an accident on the road with a semi-load of pigs. And I happened to think of that just the other morning. I heard that there was a load of pigs stopped on the road, and it was so slippery it slid off and rolled over. And, that's why we have some of these protocol in place, so you have people with the expertise to come and help take care of these animals. Fortunately, virtually no animals were injured because, it was sitting there now. It just slowly slid off and rolled over, but things happen.
Yes, they do. And unfortunately, I've experienced one of those accidents myself, which is what got me interested, actually, in animal emergency management. So that's why I'm even here.
Are you saying, Abby, it was fate then?
A long time coming, but yes.
By the way, Abby, tell us more about yourself. Where did you go to school, and what is your background? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Buffalo, Minnesota, and I went to the University of Minnesota for my bachelor's degree, and came to work for Extension 3 years ago, and will be completing actually a master's degree in animal science on Friday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I'm a gopher through and through with 2 degrees and employment, so I bleed gold, that's for sure.
And if I remember right, Sarah, you went to the University of Minnesota too, didn't you? You're swine specialist, animal science started?
Yep, that's correct. I finished up my bachelor's at the University of Minnesota, and then also did my master's here at the U of M as well. So I do also bleed maroon and gold.
Then where did you grow up?
I grew up the small community of Sunburg, Minnesota, which is out by Wilmer, Minnesota. I grew up on a hog farm there, and just fell in love with the industry and knew that no matter what, I was going to make sure that my career was going to be in the pork industry.
I do a lot of 4-H and FFA interviews, and one of the themes I like to get out is that there's so many careers in agriculture, and here you are, you grew up, you love pigs, and guess what? Sure looks to me like you have a pretty good career in the swine industry.
Yes, that's correct. There's lots of careers in agriculture, whether it's in production agriculture or in other supporting industries. The careers are endless.
And I suppose that's ditto for you, right, Abby?
I agree. I did not grow up on a farm. I have horses, but, every horse crazy girl.
I didn't call them horses. My kid's sister had a horse. What was it, hay burner? I think we call it.
Yep, we are typically known for that. But horses is what led me to FFA through high school, and then that's what ultimately led me to the university. And that's where I learned where all of the endless agriculture possibilities were. So I'm a lifer in agriculture now.
And what's fun about the University of Minnesota is, I was a student way back, Borlaug Hall and Hackman Hall and some of these icons in agriculture, you think, gee, they walked this campus. Absolutely.
I walk into Hacker Hall, which is the home of the Animal Science Department, and to use the elevator you have to walk through the hall, the Livestock Hall of Fame, and just the photos in there of people who have had such an impact on Minnesota's livestock industry. You're humbled every time you walk through.
I'll bet for you too, Sarah, over in this wine research facility there on campus or one of the outstates at the experiment stations.
Yes, that is absolutely correct, or even also the faculty that I get to work with as an educator as well, too. It's really, inspiring and humble.
One of the other things that is great about the University of Minnesota is you might be out, your specialty is this beet trailer and poultry, Sarah's is swine, but if something's going on that you don't know, there's somebody that you can call. There's resources that you can pull in to find answers, whether it's a diagnostic lab or one of the professors on staff.
Yep, we have a spreadsheet that we can access, and it is long. But it's used frequently. But just even some of the professional development meetings that we have, we just share. If College of Vet Med will come in. We work closely with the Veterinary Diagnostic Lab. Of course, now in the poultry industry, we work close with the Minnesota Poultry Testing Lab in Wilmer. And it is, if you don't know the answer yourself, somebody will, and it's easy to access.
And that is comforting, too. My fear would be, what if I get called to a farm or get a question and I don't know? I would say it's not what you know, sometimes it's who you know.
Yes, that's exactly correct. Live by that all the time. I may not know the answer, but that's okay because I know somebody who does know the answer and can definitely find out and get that answer quickly.
Well, let's talk briefly just a little bit in review about this beet trailer, the biosecurity entry education trailer again. What a great facility. And then I look at the one just down the road that is a trailer that you can learn about ventilation. There again, when you look at ventilation, Sarah, no matter what species, if you have proper air movement, you're going to prevent pneumonia, you're going to prevent other diseases. There again, another classic example. If we know what to do, and if we do it, we're going to have healthier animals.
Right, that's correct. Yep, the ventilation trailer we've had around for several years as an educational tool, and positive feedback with that too, where people get to go to workshops and do hands-on with that trailer, moving the controls, seeing how that changes the airspeed and the inlets and everything that's all entailed with ventilation.
And the beauty of these trailers too, Abby, is that producers are busy these days, so we can bring the extension educators and the trailers out to your farm, and then their workers can come right to there. Hopefully they follow bioprocedure before.
I was just going to say that. We likely probably won't come to the farm, but somewhere in town that we can have a gathering. It's mobile, so that's the best feature of that tool is we can come to you and hopefully make it a little easier for you for your learning experience.
And is it being utilized? Are you out and about quite a bit? And is it just Abby and Sarah, or is it other people that are helping too? If you guys might be somewhere and it works for this producer to be at this point at this time?
With the ventilation trailer, most of the individuals, for example, Larry Jacobson, who
I know Larry.
Retired, he's been the one that's done a lot with the ventilation trailer, as well as Mike Brum. But with the ventilation trailer, that's still new to us. Abby's had it out, certainly, for a couple workshops with the poultry folks. We haven't used it yet for the pork producers yet, but again, that's the whole reason having it here, exposure of this educational tool that we've got.
Pretty well received, I bet, when you show up somewhere and tell
people the evaluations we get back people are so appreciative of the hands-on experience. Same thing with that ventilation trailer in the years past, and they just, we're not lecturing at them, we're having discussions. They can ask questions that are specific to their procedure, to their farm, and they just love the interaction. Have some laughs. It's always fun to see people laugh at each other when they fall over trying to put coveralls on.
Just like we were talking about.
Exactly. But it's ready to roll, and we're ready to hit the ground running.
And how to get a hold of you guys?
Again, find us online at extension.umn.edu/poultry, and you will find the biosecurity link there, and you can find information about the beet trailer.
Well, thanks for coming over to help get the word out about the beet trailer. And it's not something you eat like beets that I don't like, right?
I don't like them either, so.
And Sarah, I always enjoy visiting with you. It's been a couple years now we've been visiting up here at Port Congress.
Yes, that is correct. And it's always a pleasure to speak with you as well.
And I'd also like to say thank you to the sponsors of today's AM Minnesota program from Port Congress, the Manitoba Pork Council, Express Pressure Washers in Blooming Prairie, the Minnesota Pork Board, the Goodhue County Pork Producers, and also the Rice County Pork Producers. So with that, John, we'll send it back to you at the studio. I have a couple more reports to get on later on this morning from Port Congress 2017.